The archive room was cold and quiet. Taman sat alone among towers of data crystals that reached toward the ceiling like frozen trees. His crystalline body reflected the soft blue light from the display screens. He had been sitting there for 6 hours, searching through old records that most people had forgotten existed. Taman was looking for something that bothered him, something that did not make sense. 127 years ago, humanity had simply stopped talking. No goodbye messages, no emergency signals, no war declarations. They were just there one day, active and busy across 100 worlds and then silent the next. Every human colony, every space station, every ship, all quiet at once. Other species had theories. The Draxians thought humans destroyed themselves in some great war. The Keltharians believed a plague wiped them out. The Prithians suggested humans found a way to ascend to a higher dimension and forgot about everyone else. But no one knew for certain. No one had proof. Taman did not like mysteries without answers. His species, the Valorians, had perfect memory. They remembered everything they saw, heard, or learned. For him, the gap in knowledge about humanity felt like a missing tooth. Wrong. Uncomfortable. He touched the data crystal in front of him. Information flowed into his mind. Reports from the final year of human contact. Trade agreements, scientific exchanges, cultural programs. Everything looked normal. Humans were friendly, helpful, curious as always. They made plans for next year. They scheduled meetings. They acted like they would be around forever. Then nothing. Taman moved to the next crystal. More normal activity. He was about to give up for the night when something caught his attention. A message fragment. Corrupted data from a personal communication device. The sender was listed as Hana. His internal memory sparked. Hana. He remembered her. She was the last human to serve on the Galactic Council. A small woman with dark hair and eyes that always seemed to be looking at something far away. She had resigned from her position 6 months before the silence began. At the time, no one thought much about it. People retired from council service all the time. Taman tried to open the message. The file was damaged, but his people were good with old data. He worked carefully, pulling fragments together like pieces of broken glass. After an hour, he had something readable. The message was addressed to him. Taman felt surprise run through his crystalline structure. Hana had sent this to him specifically all those years ago, but it had never reached him. It had been lost in the archive system, corrupted and forgotten. He read the partial message. Taman, if you are reading this, then we are already gone. I am sorry we could not tell you the truth. The council would have tried to stop us, and we could not risk that. Please understand, we are not running away from something. We are running toward something wonderful. There are coordinates attached to this message. If you want to understand what happened to us, go there. You will find answers. Tell the others we did not leave because we were afraid or angry. We left because we were invited to something amazing, and we chose to go together. Goodbye, my friend. Remember us kindly. The message ended there. Taman sat very still. He checked the timestamp. Hana sent this message 1 week before humanity went silent. She knew, they all knew. This was planned. He extracted the coordinates from the corrupted file. They pointed to a sector on the far edge of explored space, a region that humans had been quietly buying mining rights to for decades. At the time, other species thought humans were just securing resources. Now Taman wondered if there was another reason. He needed to bring this to the council. The next morning, Taman requested an emergency session. The council chambers were built in orbit around a dead planet called Varantis Prime. 17 species sent their representatives. The chamber was a massive sphere where delegates floated in assigned positions, arranged by star charts so everyone could see everyone else. Yunji, the High Arbiter, manifested in the center of the chamber. She was part of the Prithian collective consciousness, appearing as a glowing form made of light and thought. Taman of Valoria, you have called this session. Speak. Taman projected the message fragment for everyone to see. He explained what he found, how it was hidden in corrupted data, how Hana knew about humanity's disappearance before it happened. He showed them the coordinates. The chamber erupted in noise. Delegates from 17 species all started talking at once. Dongyun, the Keltharian archaeologist, clicked his mandibles together rapidly. His insectoid body shifted colors with excitement. This changes everything. If humanity planned their disappearance, then they were not victims. They chose to leave. But why? Asked Suhyun, the Draxian military commander. Her scaled body coiled in agitation. Why would an entire species just abandon the galaxy? It makes no sense. Perhaps they found something better, suggested Jiwan, a quiet xenoarchaeologist from the Netherian species. Perhaps they were offered something we cannot provide. Or perhaps they were threatened, Su-Yun countered. Perhaps someone forced them to leave and made them pretend it was voluntary. Yunji raised a glowing hand for silence. Speculation without evidence helps no one. Temin has provided coordinates. I propose we send an expedition to investigate. We need to know what happened to humanity. Their silence is a gap in galactic knowledge that could represent a threat. The vote was quick. 15 species voted in favor, 2 abstained. The expedition was approved. After the session ended, Temin remained in the chamber. He was thinking about Hana. He remembered the last time he spoke with her. It was at a reception for new council members. She stood by a viewing window looking out at the stars. Beautiful, are they not? Temin had said. Hana smiled, but her eyes were sad. Yes, I will miss them. At the time, Temin thought she meant she was getting old, thinking about her mortality. Now he understood. She was saying goodbye. Why did you not tell me? Temin asked the empty chamber. Did you not trust me? But he knew the answer. Hana trusted him. That is why she left the message. She knew he would look for answers when others gave up. She knew his curiosity would not let the mystery rest. Temin accessed another memory. A conversation with a human named Minjae, a young scientist who worked on stellar cartography. They were discussing the nature of exploration. Your species loves to explore, Temin had observed. You're always pushing into new territories, always looking beyond the next star. Minjae had laughed. We are good at knowing when to leave the party. When things get boring or too crowded, humans tend to pack up and find somewhere new. It is in our nature. And what if there is nowhere new to go? Temin asked. Then we make somewhere new, Minjae said with a grin. Or we find a door to somewhere that already exists. Humans are very good at finding doors. At the time, Temin thought it was just human bravado. Now he wondered if Minjae was trying to tell him something. Had humans found a door? And if so, where did it lead? The expedition would leave in 2 weeks. Temin volunteered to join it. He needed to see this through. He needed to know what happened to his friends. As he left the council chambers, Temin looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there, humanity was doing something, living somewhere, being something. He hoped Hana was right. He hoped they found something wonderful. But a small part of him worried. What if the invitation was a trap? What if humanity walked through a door that closed behind them? What if they were not celebrating in some new paradise, but crying for help in some new prison? He would find out soon enough. The stars looked different now. Before, they were just points of light marking locations and distances. Now they were questions. Each one might hide the answer to where humanity went and why. Temin made himself a promise. He would find the truth, for Hana, for all the humans who left, for the galaxy that still did not understand what it had lost. The archive room would be quiet again tonight. But Temin would not be there. He had an expedition to prepare for, and answers to find among the stars. The expedition fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel near the first abandoned human colony. Su-Hyun stood on the bridge of the lead ship, her scaled hands gripping the command rail. Through the main viewport, she could see the colony world rotating slowly in the darkness. Light still glowed on the surface. From orbit, it looked like people still lived there. But the thermal scanners told a different story. No heat signatures. No movement. No life. Take us down, Su-Hyun ordered. Landing zone near the main city center. The ship descended through thin clouds. The city appeared below them. Buildings stood intact. Streets were clean. Gardens were overgrown but not destroyed. It looked like everyone had just stepped out for a moment and would be back soon. They landed in a central plaza. Su-Hyun led the landing party out. Jiwan the xenoarchaeologist was with her, along with Kyung-Soo the AI specialist and Do-Hyun the ship's physician. Temin came too, his crystalline body reflecting the afternoon sun. The city was silent. Their footsteps echoed off the buildings. Su-Hyun activated her thermal scanner and swept it across the plaza. The device picked up faint heat traces, months old, showing where people had walked and worked and lived. Ghost images of a civilization that was no longer there. This is strange, Do-Hyun said. He was standing near a cafe with tables still set outside. There are cups on the tables, food containers in the trash bins. but no signs of panic or rush. Jiwon walked into a nearby building. It was a library. Books lined the walls from floor to ceiling. A computer terminal sat at the front desk, its screen dark but not broken. She touched a button and the terminal hummed to life. "Power is still on," she called out. "Running on automated systems." Kyung-soo joined her at the terminal. His nimble fingers worked the controls. "The library catalog is complete. Nothing deleted. Nothing damaged. It is like they wanted to preserve everything." Soo-yeon moved through the streets with her team. Every building told the same story. Homes with beds made, offices with papers filed neatly, schools with children's artwork still hanging on the walls. Everything was in order. Everything was peaceful. They found a residential area. Soo-hyun entered one of the houses. It was small and comfortable. Pictures hung on the walls showing a human family. 2 adults and 3 children smiling at the camera. The kitchen had food in sealed containers. The bedrooms had clothes folded in drawers. On the kitchen table, Soo-hyun found a letter. It was handwritten on paper, sealed in a protective envelope labeled, "To whoever finds this." She opened it carefully and read aloud. "Dear stranger, if you are reading this, then our house is yours now. We left it clean and ready for new owners. We are not coming back. We have gone somewhere new, somewhere we chose to go. Please take care of our home. We loved it here, but we were called to something greater. We hope you find happiness in these rooms like we did. With love from the Kim family." The letter was dated 1 week before humanity went silent. Soo-hyun felt a strange ache in her chest. These people knew they were leaving. They cleaned their house for strangers they would never meet. They left a kind message for whoever came after. "Commander," Taemin called from outside. "You should see this." Soo-hyun found him standing in front of a public monument. It was a metal sculpture of a human family looking up at the stars. At the base of the monument, someone had installed a new plaque. Fresh metal recently placed. The plaque read, "To those who come after us, we are sorry we could not stay to meet you. We were given a choice that comes once in a civilization's lifetime. We chose to take it. Remember us not with sadness, but with understanding. We are going home to a place we never knew existed. May you find your own path to the stars. With hope, humanity." Kyung-soo was working on accessing the colony's central data core. He set up equipment in the administrative building and spent hours breaking through security. The humans had not tried to hide anything. The locks were simple, meant to protect data from corruption, not from curious researchers. "I am in," Kyung-soo announced. "Pulling files now." Data flowed across his screens. Records of the evacuation. It had been planned down to the smallest detail. Ships arrived on schedule. Families boarded in organized groups. Everyone brought 2 bags of personal items. Everything else was left behind. "Look at this," Kyung-soo said, pulling up a specific file. It is labeled The Quiet Consensus. It appears to be results from a vote. Taemin moved closer to see. The file showed a galaxy-wide referendum that took place over 30 years. Every human colony participated. Every adult human voted. The question was simple: do you accept the invitation? The results were overwhelming. 94% voted yes. 6% voted no. But the file showed that those who voted no were mostly elderly humans who chose to live out their remaining years in known space. They were already dead by the time the evacuation happened. "But what was the invitation?" Soo-hyun asked. "The file does not say. The data is corrupted here," Kyung-soo said, frustrated. "Or intentionally vague. They reference it but never explain it directly." Do-yoon had been investigating the medical facilities. He returned to the group with a troubling report. "The hospitals are empty. Not just of people, but of biological materials. No blood samples. No tissue samples. No stored DNA. Everything was removed carefully and completely. Why would they do that?" Ji-won asked. "I do not know," Do-yoon admitted. "But it was systematic. They went through every medical database and physically destroyed the storage drives. They did not want to leave any biological trace of themselves behind." The team spent 3 days on the colony world. They found more letters, more messages, more carefully preserved artifacts. In a school, Ji-won found a time capsule the children had made. It was meant to be opened in 100 years. Inside were drawings, children's pictures of spaceships and stars and families holding hands. There were written messages, too. One said, "Dear future friends, we hope you are kind to each other. We had to go somewhere, but we left our stories for you. Maybe someday you will understand why we left. We hope you are not sad. We are happy where we are going. Another said, to whoever lives in my house now, there is a toy spaceship buried in the backyard under the big tree. You can have it. I do not need it anymore because I'm going on a real spaceship to somewhere amazing. Ji-won felt tears form in her eyes. These children knew they were leaving everything behind and they were excited about it. They thought about the future people who would find their things. They wanted those future people to be happy. The expedition moved to other human colonies. They found the same pattern everywhere. Perfect order. Careful preservation. Kind messages. No panic, no fear. Just organized departure and thoughtful goodbyes. At the 5th colony, Kyung-soo found something important. A more complete data file about the referendum. It included speeches from human leaders explaining the choice. One speech given by someone named Hyojin said, "We are being offered a chance to become more than what we are. Not through conquest or domination, but through transformation. The invitation asks us to leave behind the physical galaxy and join something greater. It will mean leaving our homes, our territories, our place among the stars. But it offers us wonder beyond anything we can imagine here. I voted yes. I hope you will too." Another speech from someone named Dae-hyun said, "I know this is frightening. I know this seems impossible. But humans have always walked toward the impossible. We climbed out of caves and reached for the moon. We left our birth world and touched other suns. Now we are being asked to take the greatest step of all, to leave the galaxy itself and find home in somewhere entirely new. I believe we should go. I believe we were meant to go." Soo-yeon listened to the speeches in silence. She was a warrior. Her species valued strength and conquest. The idea of leaving everything behind to chase some unknown promise seemed weak to her. But she could not deny the courage it must have taken. Every human chose to give up everything they knew for something they could barely understand. "They were not running away," Taemin said quietly. "Hana told me that in her message. They were running toward something." "But what?" Soo-hyun asked. "That," Taemin said, "is what we need to find out." The expedition continued toward the coordinates Hana had left. They passed through more empty colonies, more preserved cities, more messages of hope and goodbye. Each one added to the picture of what humanity had done. They had not been destroyed. They had not been conquered. They had chosen to leave together as one species united in purpose. They had taken 30 years to debate and decide. Then they had spent decades more preparing, planning, building whatever they needed for their departure. And through it all, they had thought about the people who would come after. They left libraries intact so their stories would survive. They left messages so they would be understood. They left their homes clean and ready for new owners. On the final night before reaching the coordinates, Ji-won sat in her quarters reading human poetry she had found in one of the libraries. One poem kept drawing her attention. It said, "We are not stars that burn and fade. We are comets that pass through, leaving light behind. Remember us not for staying, but for the journey we chose. Remember us not for what we were, but for what we dared to become." She closed the book and looked out her window at the stars. Somewhere beyond them, humanity was living a new existence. Somewhere they were happy, or at least they hoped to be. The expedition would reach the coordinates tomorrow. Then they would have their answers. Ji-won hoped those answers would be worth the mystery. The anomaly appeared on their sensors 3 hours before they could see it. Hyun-woo, the chief science officer, studied the readings with his logical Korthan mind. The numbers made no sense according to known physics. "This should not exist," he said flatly. "The energy readings are impossible." And yet, Taemin observed, it clearly does exist. When they finally got close enough to see it, the entire crew gathered at the viewports. Even Soo-hyun, who rarely showed emotion, stood silent and amazed. The anomaly was a ring. Massive beyond comprehension. It hung in space like a great eye staring into eternity. The ring itself was built from metal and crystal, and materials that their scanners could not identify. Inside the ring was nothing. Not darkness, not empty space. Just nothing. A void that seemed to erase the stars behind it. "It is a wormhole," Hyun-woo said after running calculations. "But stable, permanent, constructed. How is that possible?" Soo-yeon asked. "Wormholes collapse. They are unstable. You cannot just build one." "Apparently you can," Hyun-woo replied, "if you are willing to spend 50 years and use the resources of an entire species." Surrounding the ring were dozens of space stations. They orbited the structure in careful patterns, all inactive now. all dark except for minimal power signatures. "Those are human stations," Nari said. She was the communications specialist, a member of the telepathic Syndian species. "I am picking up identification beacons. They are broadcasting on automated loops." "What do they say?" Taman asked. Nari closed her eyes, listening to the signals with her mind. "Warning! Construction complete. Passage closed. Do not approach. Memorial site." Seojin, the expedition's chief engineer, requested permission to board one of the stations. Soo-hyun approved. They took a small shuttle across empty space and docked with the nearest platform. The station interior was cold but intact. Emergency lighting flickered on as they entered. Seojin found the power systems and began activating them section by section. "This station was a control hub," he said, reading display panels. "It managed power flow to the ring structure. Look at these logs." The logs were extensive and detailed. They showed construction beginning 73 years ago. Every human colony contributed. They sent ships, materials, workers, engineers. The project was called The Long Walk. "They built this," Minho said in wonder. He was the expedition's historian, a careful scholar from the Metherian species. One species, working together for decades, building something that should be impossible. Seojin pulled up more files. Technical specifications that made Hyunwoo's logical mind spin. Energy systems that combined fusion power with zero-point extraction, with something else the computers labeled as gifted technology. "What is gifted technology?" Soo-hyun demanded. Seojin found a reference file. He read it aloud. "During deep space exploration mission to Sector 447, human vessel Wandering Star made contact with an unknown intelligence. Contact was peaceful. Intelligence offered knowledge in exchange for nothing. Humans accepted. Intelligence provided theoretical framework for stable wormhole construction. Intelligence extended invitation to humanity to join them beyond known space." The team stood in silence. This was the answer. This was the invitation Hana mentioned. Something out in deep space had found humanity and offered them a gift. Not conquest. Not demands. Just an offer to come home to a place humanity never knew existed. Nari was searching through communication logs. She found broadcasts from the final years of construction, human voices explaining the project to each other, to their children, to their history. One broadcast featured someone named Junho. He spoke calmly and clearly. "We have been offered a choice. The intelligence we contacted, which we call the Guides, has shown us what lies beyond the edge of the universe. They have shown us a place where consciousness can exist without the limitations of physical form. Where we can explore infinitely, learn infinitely, become infinitely more than we are now. They have invited us to join them." Another broadcast featured someone named Yunseo. "I know many of you are afraid. I am afraid too. But I am also excited. Humanity has always been about the next horizon. We climbed down from trees to walk the plains. We crossed oceans to find new lands. We left Earth to touch other worlds. This is just the next step. The final step outward before we step inward to something greater." Minho was assembling a timeline from the data. They spent 30 years debating this. Every human had access to all information. They held forums, discussions, votes. They brought in philosophers, scientists, artists. They consulted every perspective. "And they chose to go," Taman said. 94% chose to go, Minho corrected. The remaining 6% were honored. Humanity offered them the option to stay in known space, to continue living as they always had. Most of those who voted no were elderly. They lived out their lives and died peacefully. The younger ones who voted no eventually changed their minds. Seojun found the evacuation records. They showed systematic departure over a period of 5 years. Every human colony was emptied in careful order. Ships traveled to this location, passed through the wormhole, and never returned. The last ship went through 127 years ago, Seojin reported. After that, the humans who remained behind activated the station systems to maintain the wormhole, and then they went through themselves. "So no humans are left in our galaxy," Soo-hyun said. "None," Seojin confirmed. Nari found one final broadcast. It was from Hana herself, recorded just before she entered the wormhole. Her face appeared on the screen. She looked older than Taman remembered, but happy. "My name is Hana. I am the last human to speak to you from this side of the threshold. If you are watching this, then you found us. You found what we built and where we went. I hope you understand. We were not running from you. We were not afraid of the galaxy. We loved it here. We loved exploring the stars and meeting other species and learning about the universe. Hana paused and smiled. But we were called to something more. The guides showed us a place beyond physical existence. A place where thought and dream and wonder are real things you can touch and shape. They showed us infinity and we chose to embrace it. She looked directly into the camera as if seeing Taman across time. Tell them we were not running away. Tell them we were running toward. Tell them humanity's final gift to the galaxy is proof that sometimes the bravest thing you can do is leave everything behind and chase the impossible. Hana touched her hand to the screen. Goodbye, my friends. Remember us kindly. Remember us as the species that dared to dream so big we had to leave the universe to make it real. The broadcast ended. Taman stood very still. He felt something he had never felt before. His species did not cry, but if they could, he would be crying now. Hyunwoo was examining the wormhole readings. The destination is beyond our ability to measure. It does not exist in normal space-time. The wormhole leads to somewhere outside the observable universe. Can we follow them? Soo-hyun asked. Technically, yes, Hyunwoo said. The wormhole is stable. A ship could pass through. But I cannot tell you what would happen on the other side. I cannot tell you if you could come back. I cannot tell you if your body would even survive in that place. Minho was watching the final recordings of humans entering the wormhole. Thousands of ships over years, carrying every member of an entire species. In the footage, humans waved at cameras. Children pressed their faces against viewports, excited and nervous. Adults held hands with their families. One recording showed a human family just before they boarded their ship. The father held a young daughter in his arms. She pointed at the wormhole and asked, "Is that where we are going, Daddy?" "Yes, sweetie," the father said. "Will it hurt?" "I do not think so. I think it will be beautiful." "Will we see new colors?" The father laughed. "We will see colors that do not even have names yet." The little girl thought about that and then smiled. "Okay, I'm ready." They walked into their ship together. The ship lifted off, approached the wormhole, and vanished into that impossible nothing. Seojin found the final systems log. It was written by a human engineer named Sunwoo. It said, "This is the last entry. All humans have crossed over. I am the final one remaining. I have set the stations to automatic maintenance. The wormhole will remain stable for approximately 500 years before natural decay. By then, perhaps others will be ready to follow. Perhaps not. Either way, we leave this as a memorial to what we chose. We were humanity. We were dreamers. We were brave enough to step into the unknown when it called our names. Goodbye." Timestamp showed Sunwoo wrote that 127 years ago. The expedition team returned to their ship. They spent days analyzing everything they found. The evidence was clear. Humanity had been contacted by something beyond galactic understanding. They were offered a choice. They debated that choice for decades. They voted. They accepted. They spent 50 years building a doorway to somewhere impossible. Then they walked through it together, leaving behind everything they knew. They were not conquered, Soo-hyun said during the final analysis meeting. They were not destroyed. They chose this. They chose transcendence over territory, Minho added. They chose transformation over power. They chose together, Taman said quietly. An entire species in agreement. Can you imagine? Every human from every world agreeing to leave everything behind. Nari looked at the wormhole through the viewport. What must it have been like? To be offered something so wonderful you would leave the universe for it? No one had an answer. They gathered all the data, all the recordings, all the evidence. They prepared to return to the council and report their findings. On the final night before departure, Taemin stood alone at a viewport staring at the wormhole. He thought about Hana's words, running toward, not away. Humanity had not failed. They had not been defeated. They had been offered a gift and they were brave enough to accept it. They had shown the galaxy something it had never seen before, a species willing to give up everything for a dream. Taemin pressed his crystalline hand against the viewport. I hope you found what you were looking for, Hana. I hope it was worth leaving us behind. The wormhole stared back at him, silent and inscrutable, keeping its secrets. The council chambers erupted into chaos when Taemin presented the findings. 17 species all shouted at once, some in anger, some in fear, some in wonder. Jaehyun, a young representative from the Korvathian species, stood at his position in the floating sphere. His voice cut through the noise. They found a way out. They found a door to something beyond this universe, and they took it. We should follow them. Madness, Yuna snapped. She was the military strategist for the Hegemony Coalition, a powerful alliance of 6 warrior species. We know nothing about what lies beyond that wormhole. For all we know, humanity was tricked. They could be prisoners. They could be dead. They could be free, Jaehyun countered. Free in a way we cannot imagine. Sangwoo, the philosopher from the ancient Viridian species, raised a hand for calm. His species was old, older than any others in the council. They had seen civilizations rise and fall for millions of years. We are missing the point. Whether we follow or not is irrelevant. What matters is what humanity's choice teaches us about them and about ourselves. Yunji, the High Arbiter, manifested brighter in the center of the chamber. Explain, Sangwoo. Sangwoo's ancient eyes swept across the assembled delegates. Every species in this chamber has conquered territory, built empires, expanded influence. We measure success by how much space we control, how many worlds we govern, how powerful our militaries are. Humanity did all of that too. They were good at it, he paused. But when offered something greater than power, they chose it. They did not choose to conquer the galaxy. They chose to leave it. That tells us something profound about human nature. They valued transcendence over dominance. They valued wonder over territory. They valued fairy tales over reality, Yuna said harshly. They abandoned perfectly good worlds to chase some unknown promise. That is not wisdom. That is foolishness, is it? Sangwoo asked. They debated for 30 years. They analyzed every aspect of the choice. They were not impulsive. They were not deceived. They made an informed decision as a united species. Can any of us say the same about our own major decisions? The chamber fell quiet. It was true. No other species had ever achieved that level of consensus. The council itself was built on compromise and disagreement. Over the following weeks, the galaxy struggled with the revelation. News of humanity's voluntary departure spread across all civilized worlds. Reactions were mixed and intense. Some species declared humanity weak. They argued that any species willing to abandon the galaxy was not worthy of respect. They began moving into empty human territories, claiming worlds and stations. This led to conflicts. Other species wanted to preserve human sites as memorials. They argued that humanity's legacy deserved protection. Borum, an archivist from the peaceful Luminian species, took leadership of the preservation movement. She was soft-spoken but determined. She traveled to the council and made an impassioned speech. Humanity left us a gift, Borum said. They left their worlds intact. Their libraries full, their art preserved, their stories waiting to be read. They did this intentionally. They wanted to be remembered. They wanted us to learn from them. She projected images of human colonies, clean streets, preserved buildings, messages of goodbye and hope. If we tear down what they left, if we erase their presence and replace it with our own, we lose something irreplaceable. We lose the chance to understand a species that chose a different path than any of us would have chosen. Borum's efforts gained support. A coalition of species agreed to protect human worlds as heritage sites. They would allow visitation but not colonization. They would preserve but not exploit. But Yuna was not satisfied. She brought a different concern to the council. The wormhole remains open, she said during a security briefing. We do not know what is on the other side. What if the guides who invited humanity are not benevolent? What if they study species, collect them, trap them? What if something comes back through that wormhole that we are not prepared to face? She projected tactical scenarios. Each one showed potential threats emerging from the wormhole. Invasion forces, unknown technologies, existential dangers. We should seal the wormhole, Yuna concluded. Destroy the stations maintaining it. Close the door humanity opened before something terrible comes through. Jaehyun stood in opposition. You want to destroy the most significant discovery in galactic history because you are afraid? The wormhole is stable. It has been open for over a century. Nothing has come through. Nothing has threatened us. Yet, Yuna said darkly. Jaehyun's passion grew. Humanity left that wormhole open for a reason. Maybe as an invitation. Maybe as a gift. Maybe as a path for others who might want to follow. We have no right to destroy it. We have every right to protect ourselves, Yuna countered. The debate raged for months. Jaehyun gathered followers from multiple species. Young people mostly. Dreamers, artists, scientists. People who looked at the wormhole and saw possibility instead of threat. They called themselves the Seekers. They wanted to study the wormhole, learn from it. Some even wanted to follow humanity through it. Sang-Woo watched this division with ancient eyes. He wrote extensively about it in his philosophical journals. His writings were published across the galaxy and became required reading in academic institutions. One passage became particularly famous. Humanity's departure reveals a fundamental truth. Some species look at the unknown and see danger. Others see opportunity. Some see a door and want to close it. Others want to walk through. Neither perspective is wrong. But humanity showed us a third way. They looked at the unknown, acknowledged the danger, accepted the uncertainty, and walked through anyway. Not because they were reckless, but because they were brave. The council finally voted. The debate lasted 3 full days. Every species presented their position. Arguments were made and countered. Evidence was examined. In the end, the vote was close. 9 species voted to seal the wormhole. 8 voted to preserve it. The wormhole would be closed, but not destroyed. The council agreed to place the structure in a kind of stasis. The stations would be powered down. The wormhole would be allowed to decay naturally over 500 years, but the ring structure itself would be preserved as a monument. Human territories would be protected as memorial sites. No colonization, no exploitation. They would remain as humanity left them. Empty cities as testaments to the species that chose to leave. Jae-hyun was devastated by the vote. He stood in the council chamber after the decision was announced, tears streaming down his face. "We are closing the door," he said to anyone who would listen. "Humanity opened a door to infinity and we are closing it because we are afraid." Borum approached him gently. "The door is not closed, not yet. It will decay naturally over 5 centuries. That is a long time. Perhaps in that time we will become brave enough to walk through." 500 years, Jae-hyun said bitterly. "By then the path might be gone forever." "Or perhaps," Borum suggested, 500 years is exactly how long we need to be ready." Taemin watched these debates from a distance. He understood both sides, fear and wonder, safety and exploration, the known and the unknown. He spent his time in the human archives, reading their literature, studying their history. He wanted to understand what made them different, what gave them the courage to choose transcendence over security. He found a human text called The Collective Dream. It was written during the 30-year debate period. One passage struck him deeply. "We are being offered a chance to become more than human. Some say this means we will lose our humanity. I disagree. I think this means we will fulfill our humanity. Humans have always been dreamers. We dreamed of flying and built wings. We dreamed of touching stars and built ships. We dreamed of meeting other minds and found them among the galaxies. Now we dream of transcendence and we are being offered a way to achieve it. To refuse this dream is to refuse what makes us human." Taemin closed the text and sat in silence. He finally understood. Humanity did not leave because they hated the galaxy. They left because they loved dreaming more than they feared the unknown. Across the galaxy, humanity's empty worlds became pilgrimage sites. Species came to walk through human cities, to sit in human homes, to read human books, to wonder about the people who lived there and the choice they made. Young people especially were drawn to these places. They would stand in front of the monuments humanity left behind and ask questions. What would I have chosen? Would I have been brave enough to go? Would I have stayed behind? Borum organized the preservation efforts beautifully. She created guidelines for visitors, rules to protect the sites, educational programs to help people understand human culture. She personally led tours through a human colony called New Horizon. It had been one of the last colonies evacuated. The humans there had left extensive documentation of their final days. Borum would show visitors the community center where humans held their final meeting. She would read them the speech given by a woman named Ariam. "We are leaving tomorrow," Ariam had said. "Some of you are afraid. That is okay. I am afraid too. But I am also excited. We are going to touch infinity. We are going to see what exists beyond existence. Our children will grow up in a place where imagination is reality, where thought creates form, where we are limited only by our own courage to dream. Visitors would stand in that community center and imagine it full of people, full of hope and fear and determination. Sang-Woo published his final work on humanity. It was called The Species That Walked Away. It became the definitive philosophical examination of humanity's choice. His conclusion was simple. Humanity taught the galaxy that strength is not always about staying and fighting. Sometimes strength is about knowing when to move on. They showed us that the bravest civilizations are not the ones who conquer the most territory, but the ones who dare to seek the most profound transformation. The book ended with a question. When the door is offered, will you have the courage to walk through? Or will you, like most of us, choose the safety of the known over the terror and wonder of the infinite? The galaxy was left to ponder that question, and the wormhole hung in space, slowly decaying, keeping its secrets for 500 more years. 50 years had passed since the council voted to let the wormhole decay. Ji-hoon stood in the same archive room where Taemin had first discovered Hana's message. He was young for a Valorian, born after humanity left, but he had spent his entire life studying them. The archives were larger now, filled not just with human records but with thousands of studies, papers, and artistic works created by other species, examining humanity's legacy. Humanity had become the most studied extinct civilization in galactic history, except they were not extinct. They were just somewhere else. Ji-hoon was writing a comprehensive history of humanity's departure. His work would be the definitive account, drawing on every source, every interview, every scrap of evidence. He had interviewed Taemin extensively before the old Valorian finally let his crystalline form dissolve into pure memory. As all Valorians eventually did, Taemin's final words to Ji-hoon had been, "Tell the truth, not the legend, not the myth. The truth. They were not perfect. They were not saints. They were people who made a choice. Honor them by being honest." Ji-hoon intended to do exactly that. His history showed humanity's flaws alongside their virtues, their internal conflicts during the 30-year debate. The families torn apart when some members wanted to go and others wanted to stay. The fear and doubt that plagued their decision. But it also showed their extraordinary unity in the end. How they came together despite their differences. How they chose collectively to take the greatest leap any species had ever taken. The book was nearly finished. Ji-hoon was writing the final chapter when an alert came through his communication device. It was from Soyeon. Soyeon was the captain of the Memorial Patrol, a military unit dedicated to protecting human heritage sites from looters, vandals, and those who would exploit humanity's legacy for profit. Her message was urgent. "Ji-hoon, you need to come to the memorial site immediately. Something is happening at the wormhole." Ji-hoon left the archives and caught the fastest transport to the wormhole site. It took 3 days to reach it. During the journey, he received updates from Soyeon. The wormhole was emitting a signal. After 50 years of silence, it was suddenly active. When Ji-hoon arrived, he found a crowd of ships orbiting the structure. Scientists, military vessels, curious civilians. Everyone wanted to see what was happening. Soyeon met him at the airlock of her patrol ship. She was a member of the Syntherian species, tall and graceful with skin that shimmered like starlight. "It started 2 days ago," Soyeon explained as they walked to the observation deck. "A pulse. Regular and rhythmic. Fujin is trying to decode it." Fujin was the lead scientist assigned to monitor the wormhole. He was a member of the Analytican species, known for their mathematical minds. He had spent 20 years studying the wormhole structure, measuring its slow decay, documenting every change. Now he stood surrounded by displays and calculations, his multiple hands working several control panels simultaneously. "The pattern is complex," Woo Jin said without looking up. "But it is definitely a signal. Not random, not natural, intentional. Can you decode it?" Ji-hoon asked, working on it. "The mathematics are extraordinary. The signal uses quantum encoding that should not be possible, but I am making progress." 3 days later, Woo Jin called everyone together. His face showed exhaustion but also excitement. "I have decoded the message," he announced. "It is in multiple languages. Human languages, but also mathematical constructs that any species could understand. The message is simple." He displayed it on the main screen. It appeared in text, audio, and visual format simultaneously. The message said, "Thank you for remembering. We are well. We are home." The observation deck fell silent. Then someone laughed. Then someone cried. Then everyone started talking at once. They are alive, Soyeon whispered. More than alive, Woojin said. The signal originated from beyond the wormhole, but it also originated from the wormhole itself. The humans have achieved a level of existence that allows them to manipulate the structure from the other side. They are showing us they are real. They are showing us they succeeded. Jihoon felt something break open in his chest. All his years of study, all his research into humanity's disappearance, and now this. Proof. Confirmation. They had found what they were looking for. The message repeated on a constant loop. The same words over and over. A simple reassurance sent across impossible distance. Thank you for remembering. We are well. We are home. News of the message spread across the galaxy within hours. The reaction was immediate and overwhelming. Some species celebrated, others fell into deeper confusion. Some renewed their arguments that the wormhole should be destroyed. Others insisted it should be studied more carefully. But something else happened too. Something unexpected. An artist named Minji traveled to a human colony world called First Light. She was a member of the Luminian species, the same peaceful people that Borum had belonged to. Borum had died 15 years earlier, but her legacy of preservation continued. Minji had an idea, a way to honor humanity that would be visible across the system. She gathered volunteers from multiple species, thousands of them. Together they worked on the largest art installation ever created. On First Light, in the empty plains outside the main city, they placed millions of small lights. Each light represented one human who had passed through the wormhole. The lights were arranged in a specific pattern. When viewed from orbit, the lights formed words. The words humanity had left behind most often in their messages and monuments. Dream big, be kind, look up. The installation was programmed to light up at sunset. When it did, the words glowed bright enough to be seen from space. Ships in orbit could read humanity's final wisdom written in light across an empty world. Minji stood in the center of the installation on that first night, alone among millions of lights. She thought about the humans who once walked this world, who looked up at these same stars and dreamed of something greater. You were braver than we are, she said to the empty air, but maybe someday we will learn. The installation became the most visited human memorial site. Species came from across the galaxy to see it, to stand among the lights, to read humanity's words and think about what they meant. Dream big. Be kind, look up simple words. But they contained everything humanity had been. Jihoon completed his history. He called it The Quiet Departure, a complete account of humanity's choice. The final paragraph read, Humanity showed the galaxy something we had never seen before. A species willing to give up everything for a dream. They were not conquered. They were not destroyed. They chose to leave. They chose together, and in leaving they taught us that the greatest courage is not in fighting to stay, but in daring to go when something greater calls. They are gone from our universe, but they left us their stories, their art, their cities, and their example. We mourned their disappearance, but perhaps we should celebrate their arrival in the place they truly belonged. The book was published in every language spoken by every species. It became required reading in schools across the galaxy. Children grew up learning about the humans, the species that walked away. Soyeon continued her work protecting human sites. Over the years, she had walked through hundreds of human cities. She had read thousands of human books. She had never met a human, but she felt like she knew them. Her favorite site was a small colony called Quiet Harbor. It had been a research station focused on xenobiology. The humans there had studied other species with genuine curiosity and respect. In the main laboratory, someone had left a note on a workbench. Soyeon had read it 100 times, but it still moved her. To the next researchers who use this lab, we hope you make wonderful discoveries. We hope you approach the unknown with curiosity instead of fear. We hope you remember that every species, no matter how different from you, has something to teach. We learned so much from all of you. Thank you for sharing the galaxy with us. Good luck with your research. Soyeon would stand in that empty laboratory and imagine it full of people, full of humans working and laughing and discovering. She wished she could have met them. She wished she could have thanked them for their kindness. Woojin continued monitoring the wormhole. The signal from humanity remained constant. Thank you for remembering. We are well. We are home. He measured the wormhole's decay rate. It was closing faster now. In another 50 years, maybe less, it would collapse completely. The door humanity opened would be closed forever. Do you think anyone will ever follow them? His assistant asked one day. Woojin thought about it. I do not know, perhaps, but I think if anyone does, it will not be my generation or yours. It will be a future generation. One that has learned enough from humanity's example to be brave enough to take the same leap. What did we learn from them? The assistant asked. Wujin smiled. We learned that strength comes in many forms. That courage is not always about fighting. That sometimes the greatest achievement is knowing when to move forward into the unknown. We learned that a species can be great not because of what it conquers, but because of what it dares to become. On the 50th anniversary of humanity's departure, the Council held a memorial ceremony. Representatives from all 17 species gathered at the wormhole site. Yunji, who had been High Arbiter for all those years, spoke to the assembly. Her glowing form was dimmer now, showing the age even a collective consciousness could feel. 50 years ago, we learned that humanity chose to leave us. We were confused. We were afraid. Some of us were angry. But now, 50 years later, we understand better. Humanity was not running away from us. They were running toward something we could not give them. She paused, looking at the wormhole. It was smaller now, the decay visible even to unaided eyes. They left us a gift, not just their empty worlds and their preserved libraries, but a question, a challenge. They asked us, through their absence, what we value. Do we value territory or transcendence? Power or transformation? The known or the unknown? We have not answered that question yet. Perhaps we never will. But humanity's departure forces us to think about it, and in thinking about it, we become better than we were. After the ceremony, a young alien child approached the memorial plaque placed at the wormhole site. She was a member of a species that had only recently joined the council. She had learned about humans in school. She looked up at her parent and asked, "Will we ever be brave like the humans?" Her parent thought carefully before answering, "Perhaps, but first we must decide what we are brave enough to reach for." The child nodded and placed a small flower at the base of the memorial. It was a human flower, grown in one of the preserved gardens. Blue petals reaching upward. The wormhole pulsed its message again. Thank you for remembering. We are well. We are home. Across the galaxy, on empty human worlds, the lights of Minji's installations glowed in the darkness. Dream big, be kind, look up. Humanity was gone. But they were not forgotten. They had departed quietly, leaving behind no destruction, no war, no demands. Just empty cities full of stories and a monument to the impossible dream they had the courage to chase. The galaxy mourned their disappearance. But in mourning, they learned. In remembering, they grew. In studying humanity's choice, they became better. And somewhere beyond the edge of the universe, in a place where thought became form and consciousness touched infinity, humanity was home. They had found what they were looking for. They had become what they dared to dream. And they were well. The stars would remember them. The galaxy would tell their story, and future generations would look at the decaying wormhole and wonder if they would ever be brave enough to follow. The answer was not yet, maybe not ever, but the question remained, and that was humanity's final gift, the courage to ask what if,